Right, now, we're very pleased to announce that Steve Allen, LBC presenter, joins us on the line now. Steve Allen, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. This is normal time for me, so it doesn't make any difference at all. I'm quite happy this time. I was just waiting for the end of Ed Sheeran. I wasn't sure whether it was some sort of news burst or something you were going to tell us, you know.
No, he's not pregnant.
I've never been a fan of Ed Sheeran. It's odd that, isn't it? I quite like the music, but every time I see a picture of him, I can't help feeling that maybe he could go on one of these cosmetic surgery programs on the television. You know, in a nice way. I don't mean that in an uncaring kind of way. I think although he's got a stunning-looking girlfriend.
Has he?
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm assuming it's got nothing to do with his money and the fact that he's hugely successful, so they're obviously deeply in love. He must be terribly surprised.
Now, Steve, I just want to ask, is this your first time ever on student radio?
I'm trying to think about it. I did go to a student radio conference in Nottingham some years ago.
I bet you love that.
It was riveting. It was full of people half my age, which was a thrill in itself. And I didn't know how big student radio was. I mean, I've spoken to people before who've done it, but I don't think it was around when I was your age. We had hospital radio, and that was about it. I don't think there was anything like student. So does student radio transmit around the campus?
Well, yeah, we're on AM, so not the strongest frequency, but
it does. Okay, no, AM's good.
It does get us to Warwick and Leamington, actually, so we can stretch
Good Lord, Leamington. Is that still there?
It is just about there.
Unbelievable. I mean, I'd heard talk that it was still standing, but I was surprised. So you do the same. There's a hospital radio station called Gosh, which is the Great Ormond Street.
Right.
Hospital radio, and that transmits so the kids can take their radio into hospital and tune it in, which is sort of different from normal hospital radios where you have to listen on the headset if they're working. So student radio, I'm assuming. I mean, are you bound by any of the laws that we're bound by?
Yeah, a bit of Ofcom. A bit of Ofcom.
I love Ofcom. One of my favourite groups. I love Ofcom. They love me deeply.
Do you know what the joy is? They never check in with us because we're student radio, so they've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, I mean, I can't. I mean, so at this time, I mean, I'm assuming. What are we? Are you normal time? 3:05.
3:05.
Right, 3:05. So I'm assuming the majority of students are completely off their trolleys. I mean, that's generally how it works, isn't it? I believe.
Do you know what, land. Steve? They will just be coming out of a club in Leamington Spa called Smack right now.
Right, the club in Leamington Spa. I mean, dear Lord, do
you know what? There's two or three.
There's quite a few.
I'm amazed by this. I mean, I think. Well, I don't know. You don't look like the sort of person who goes to clubs. I don't know what Joe looks like. But,
definitely not.
I should imagine, Henry, you've probably got bigger fish to fry than stand in a club wasting money at the bar.
There's no club in New Malden, unfortunately.
Well, I'm sure the whole of New Malden's a club. The whole of New Malden. I mean, you've only got to arrive in New Malden and people go, "Are you going to the club?" And you go, "I'm here." And that's what it's like. It's nice. I mean, it's sort of borderline sort of Croydon, isn't it, as we know?
It's nowhere near. Come on.
Is it not? I don't know. See, the trouble is, I always think. I mean, I think student radio must be a great thing because it takes up people's. I was doing an interview with. What was I invited up there for? Oh, the guy who's on Radio 1, Scott.
Oh, Scott Mills.
And Scott Mills. And he'd said he was being interviewed at the student radio convention, and he said, "I want Steve Allen to interview me." And so I went up there, but of course I find it very difficult to do an interview with somebody without talking about me, which is sort of generally far more entertaining. And so we did this interview, and he ended up sort of asking me questions. So the whole thing turned itself around. But
goodness.
I think it was done to sort of encourage people to go into radio. And to sort of, because LBC is different from the majority of stations in the fact that we're a speech station, so we don't play music, which, would probably confuse the majority of students, I should imagine.
Yeah.
The idea that somebody just keeps talking and keeps talking and keeps talking, and because the majority of it is phone-in, I don't do phone-in. But, it must be quite nice to do music every so often.
Why do you not do phone-in?
Sorry?
Why do you not do a phone-in? I've always wondered this.
Oh, who can be bothered to talk to these people? I mean, good God in heaven. Listen, I mean, most of them are mad as broomsticks anyway. It holds me up. So if I start doing program, that in about 2 minutes we're going to start going through the newspapers, then I've got to record a podcast, then we've got to do the opener for the program, and then we go on. So if I start chatting away, and then all of a sudden a call comes in, and it's somebody who sort of might be, "Hello, Steve," and you think, no, it's held up the flow of the program. I want the program to whiz through. Some presenters can't do that.
Yeah.
Some presenters like talking to the public, whereas I've done phone-ins, and you get good phone-in presenters. I'm not one of them.
In fairness, Steve, at 4 a.m, who knows who you'd have calling in as well?
Oh, well, as I say, a lot of people on medication. A lot of people sitting in A&E, I should imagine.
Yeah.
People probably waiting in undertakers, for them to release their grandmother or something. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think the audience are a good cross-section. I used to get, years ago, a lot of students because they would study overnight.
Yeah.
So they would listen to the programme. I think it's now completely varied. I think it's completely varied because 4 o'clock in the morning till 7, people sort of say, the graveyard shift. And you go, there is no such thing. I'm in London. I'm in the middle of London. I look out the window. I'm in Leicester Square. It doesn't get any bigger than this. And it's a 24-hour city. People are working. Yeah. The newspapers are being printed. Everything. It's just like, it's normal daytime for me. In fact, daytime is worse, I have to be honest.
On your sort of hours at LBC, I mean, how does that affect the rest of your day? Does it affect kind of what time do you go to sleep and things like that?
Yeah.
It's a bit personal, isn't it?
I know, sorry, it's a little bit stalkerish, wasn't it?
Habit. It sounds a little bit stalkerish, especially as you're not that far away as the crow flies. If it was strapped to Concorde. I go to bed tonight's Friday, so it'll be a late night at about 8 o'clock. And because I wake up at 1.
Yeah.
I then I'm a complete creature of habit. I do exactly the same thing every morning. I get up at 1, I get the shaver, I go to the kitchen, I make a cup of coffee, I sit in front of the television, I flick through the news to see who's died or who's done what, have a shave, sit in the shower, because I sit in my shower, I have a seat. Because I'm at that age.
A seat in your shower?
That's brilliant.
Yes. Well, it means you can reach everything. I don't like having to sort of bend over to sort of find things. It's easier if you're sitting down. It's all within reaching distance.
So you'd recommend a seat in the shower then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good Lord. I mean, honestly, you can pick them up so cheaply from Argos. They're about, £6. You have to assemble it, admittedly. Then you just sit there. You can reach your feet. All the bits that you can't normally reach in the shower. Yeah. Easy. It's great. I love it. So I do that, and then I get ready, and then the car picks me up, brings me in. I make a cup of coffee, pick up the newspapers, go through them, and we just do the programme. I mean, today I've got, as I say, a podcast to do. Then I've got an interview with John Culshaw for In Conversation for this weekend, and then I go home. So I'll be home by about 11:45 today.
Okay.
So I have a relatively normal day. Generally, the Prosecco gets opened at about 4 o'clock, I should imagine. That's right. So by the time I get to 8, I'm really quite tired. And it means I have a full day Saturday for doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
And being a bit lazy. So it's quite nice. But you're in the middle of how many hours?
We're in the middle of 50 hours. I think we've got about, 12 hours left to go. We're going till 2 p.m. Today.
God.
Yeah, we've been going since 12 on Wednesday.
Have you not started rambling yet?
Oh, we have.
You rambled.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's an easy thing to do, isn't it? I mean, I would think, one of our guys here, Tony, who works on the Gold Station, he did, I forget how many hours for Make Some Noise. How many hours did he do? Something like 48 hours? He did 48 hours. I mean, he must have been driven mad by it.
Well, the thing is, Steve, because we know you're quite good friends with Chris Moores, and Chris did, 52 hours for Comic Relief a couple of years ago?
He did, yes, he did. In fact, I saw him yesterday.
Oh, did you?
I would have had to see him every day.
Are you reading the news again?
No, not since the last time. Because the trouble is, I mean, over there, in their little studio, it's very sweet, but it's full of celebrities. You get Vernon Kay, and he's always sort of texting somebody, and then you get Johnny Vaughan, and they've got no end of people around there. I quite like seeing them, but they all think I'm like sort of, Uncle Steve. So it sounds a little bit like the Who's Tommy at times. I agree, but it's nice. It's a bit. Well, you know what the building's like. You've been in it.
It's brilliant. I do like it. It's massive.
Huge.
There's so many radio stations.
Do radio as a living? Do you think either of you would do radio as a living?
We'd like to.
I think that's our dream, but we're aware of how competitive it is, Steve.
It is. It's terribly. I mean, it isn't so much competitive. It's a case of how do you get into it?
Yeah.
That's the, if somebody said to me, how do you get a job at LBC? I wouldn't have the faintest idea, because I don't think they've actually taken on anybody just on spec.
Yeah.
For the simple reason that you're working on audience figures. If you don't get the audience figures, they're not going to keep you. So, you only got to have one or two bad radars, which is the way that we gauge our audience, and they're going to lose you. And it kind of could be demoralising. But unfortunately, sorry?
Out of interest, you just want to say, for people who don't know, how did you get into LBC?
well, I couldn't possibly go into that, but let's just say there's a little couch around here somewhere, and
it's late
got
night.
my name on it. I got in years and years ago when it was easier to get in. In fact, the easiest way I did, because I wanted to be a newsreader, I didn't think I'd be a presenter.
Yeah.
And so what we did was I was working for a radio station in a biscuit factory, which sounds slightly bizarre, right?
Incredible.
Which was incredible, and it spawned a lot of DJs and presenters as well. And so what we did, we used to take independent radio news, so we lifted a bulletin, we took out the newsreader's voice, substituted my voice, and we then submitted that as an audition tape to LBC. And so they could hear what I sounded like reading their bulletin.
Right.
And so that was the easiest way. So it was the quickest 3-minute demo you've ever heard. There's no point, I mean, if you're going for a music job, you know, the last thing somebody wants to hear is you playing records. They know what records sound like. What they want to know is, does your voice sound right?
Yeah.
And if your voice doesn't fit into the style, you know, so what I always thought people would have to do is target a particular station. So if you want to work for Capital, at least listen to it and find out who the boss is and what they do, as opposed to just going, I want to work for Capital Radio. I mean, it doesn't work like that, and they're not likely to do anything. Or work experience, that's always very good. People take on work experience, and if they like somebody, then they might put them on the news desk. Very rare that you go here from the news desk to presenting. I don't think it's ever happened, has it? Oh yeah, you probably do. So I'm just saying, so I have to talk to the newsreader because he feels terribly left out if we don't weave him in. Oh, yes, Sam Pittis, who works on Classic, he was a reporter, a newsreader on our news desk. Charles is here at the moment. He's sort of like an elderly version of Jedwood. It's quite sweet, really, without actually the bathing together or anything like that. So that I would always say that, you know, target a radio station, but at least have the decency to find out what they do and who the boss is. So you're writing to a particular person and say, listen, I'm a big fan. You know, do you have any? I mean, work experience placements are good because if they like you, then a lot of times, if they're looking for somebody, then they can go, well, actually, we quite like Joe or we quite like you or whatever. And so you then go, well, let's try them out. That's basically how it works. And once you're in, you've got to cling on by the skin of your teeth to make sure that nobody comes and nicks your job.
Take your job, yeah.
But you stand and fall by your figures. Bad figures, no job. It's commercial radio. You can't afford to risk it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You always talk about the 4 a.m. spike, don't you? But on your LBC colleagues, we've been lucky enough, John Stapleton's done an interview for us, and Darren Adam is joining us at about 4:30, I believe.
Oh, there's no chance. You'll have to sober him up. He's terrible this morning, really. Darren Adam's going to be doing this as well. How is he at the moment? Is he a bit... I'm looking at him on the screen. He looks like... Oh, seriously. I mean, if you can get 3 words out of him, it'll be a bloody miracle. Don't tell him I said that, for goodness sake. But I'm looking at... He looks as though he's about to train as a matelot on a ship or something, doesn't he? He's wearing his little stripy vest this morning.
Ooh,
amazing.
It's nice, actually. I mean, it's a good look.
Ooh, lovely.
Very, very thin arms. and he's got a suitcase downstairs because after he's obviously spoken to you, he then flies off to Scotland.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
He always does that on a Friday. He's flying this morning, isn't he? You know, I've actually had a word with customs. He won't get any further than customs, I promise you. One of those things where they'll be having a chat with him at the airport.
On slightly different colleagues of yours, obviously you've been joined at LBC now by Nigel Farage and Katie Hopkins, who I think you call her the broomstick or something along those lines.
Well, I mean, she does turn up with a broomstick, yes. I mean, Katie is well known for parking it on a Sunday morning, and she insists on kissing. Oh, dear.
Does she actually?
Oh, it's dreadful. I mean, seriously. I mean, I don't mind. A joke's a joke, for goodness sake. But, you know, when she's trying to force her tongue into your mouth, it's a little bit embarrassing. I mean, I go for it because it keeps her happy and she's elderly. But really, most of the time, I wouldn't be interested. But she's fairly forthright, as you probably gathered.
Well, really, yeah.
And I think Nigel as well. But I think Nigel just gets the audience because people go, well, we can actually talk to him. Yeah, you can talk to him for an hour every night, except Friday. So up until last night, and they open up the phone lines, and he'll have a good old argument with people. But then lots of the presenters on here have arguments. But I would imagine, and also Majid, they would be our three most controversial presenter. I don't like using the word controversial because I think it alienates people. But they are people who provoke thoughts in other people, and I love listening to people being destroyed by somebody who knows more about the argument than they do. It's like listening to sort of Diane Abbott. Bless her heart. I mean, such a shame she couldn't vote the other night. But you know, if you're ill, you're ill. What can I tell you? So she couldn't do it.
She didn't turn up, did she?
No, she was ill. She had a migraine.
Oh.
I've never heard her mention migraines ever before, so I hope it's not something recent. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? It'd be awful for poor Diane Abbott.
Steve, I've just wanted to ask you, because obviously you said earlier, so you do obviously you do your 3 hours, no phone-ins. Obviously, we're trying to keep going for another 12, however many hours. Do you have any sort of top tips of how to sort of keep talking and it sort of be coherent and be good radio rather than just ramblings?
Jelly babies. Jelly babies are the art. Well, they are for me because I'm diabetic, so jelly babies are a good idea for me.
Is it a bag of show?
You can always tell if I've had jelly babies. I sort of wander off with the pixies. So I try and avoid them like the plague. But the good thing is that there's two of you, so you can kind of bounce off each other.
Yeah.
And if one's feeling a bit sort of like that, then the other one can pick up. If you're doing it by yourself, you kind of just got to knuckle down and do it. I can't explain what it is you do. You just do it, and it either works or it doesn't work. But 9 out of 10 times it works. But for you two, you will get to the end. You'll find it difficult to sleep, I would imagine, at the end of
body clocks,
50 hours.
Yeah, 50 hours.
We've got a bar crawl at the end as well.
We've got to go out in Leamington, Steve. We're going to go to Smack.
You're not.
Feel free to join.
We are. Tomorrow night.
I expect photos of this, Henry.
Yes.
Steve, I wanted to ask as well, because I was actually driving back to work a couple of weekends ago, obviously listening to your In Conversation show. It was Tom Daly that weekend, but I'm a big fan of Davina McCall, and I know you had her on. You're quite good friends. Where's the sort of the connection from that? Where did you know Davina from?
The connection goes back with Davina, about 30 years ago.
Oh, right.
About 30 years ago. I met her via... I can't remember what it was. Anyway, we ended up going out for dinner. Me, Dale Winton, Davina, and her then boyfriend, who became her husband.
Matthew.
And we just sort of clicked. I mean, I like her because she's not my normal sort of presenter that I sort of target. I mean, she gets on, she does it, she's super fit. And of course, you've seen me, I am not super fit. I harbour strange thoughts about, being in a gymnasium with a washboard stomach, but it won't be mine. It'll be somebody else's. And so we just got on well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you do an interview with somebody and once people have met me, John Culshaw, who's coming today, I worked with John 15 years ago, so there's always something to talk about. And then you pick up where you left off. It's one of those sort of businesses. I can't explain what it is.
Yeah.
But Tom Daly, I love to pieces. I thought he was great.
Yeah.
And
on that, do you have any sort of favourite guests, Steve, especially on your In Conversation show? No,
they're all vetted beforehand. We decide which ones we want to talk to, which ones we don't want to talk to.
Yeah, get rid of them.
I'm just worried. The only thing I worry about nowadays is the amount of celebrities who seem to enjoy performing in front of a computer camera.
Yeah, well.
I mean, heavens above. I mean, the cast list is enormous of these people. I don't know if you've ever seen any of these things. I mean, it's really quite shocking.
We tend to steer away, don't we?
Well, you look at these people and think, why would you do that? I mean, heavens above. I mean, I have bars on my little seat, with the light off. There's no way I've even blocked up the camera on my computer at home. I put a piece of sticky paper over it, just in case somebody can eavesdrop in to what I'm looking at. I don't want to be caught browsing the Argos catalogue at 3 a.m. or something. So I do worry about that. But it seems to be the new sort of celeb porn, doesn't it? It's people who want to show themselves off. I think even Tom Daly got in on the act.
Well, he did. There was a whole story the other week about it.
I think that was a setup. I think it's a case of because he didn't do anything. If you saw the film, he didn't do anything at all. It was a pretty straight. You saw more if he goes diving. It was all a bit disappointing, I think, for people who like Tom Daly. But no, he's just such a nice guy.
Yeah.
He seems to have sort of done it quite well. I think there's a guy in Coronation Street who's just come out the other day. And you think, why do people do it? Who cares?
Yeah.
It's of no interest to anybody, really. What somebody's sexuality is, what somebody does. I couldn't care if people worship a frying pan. It makes no difference to me. I'm really not bothered by it. It's just that people feel this urge to come out and tell you, I've done cocaine, I've done this, I was an alcoholic, I slept with most of Pimlico kind of thing. It's just, nobody cares. But it's an effort in this day and age to try and get away from a minor celebrity. There are loads of them.
So I'm guessing, Steve, that we're not going to see any of the cast members of The Only Way is Essex on In Conversation anytime soon.
So, no. The trouble is, if you're going to talk to somebody, they have to have done something, in my eyes. They've got to, anybody can be a celebrity, but just being on the television is not a celebrity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they all go, "Oh, I'm a fashion designer." You go, "No, you're not.
No, you're not.
You're really not. I promise you. You're just another silly little overweight girl from Essex who goes out with somebody who's in prison. You are not a fashion designer. Okay, get over yourself." But the newspapers put them in. OK Magazine put them in.
They love them.
I mean, look at poor Peter Andre. I mean, bless his heart. His career is now plumbed to the depths of being on that lip sync program.
Lip sync battle. What a treat! Yeah.
Have you seen? I mean, what a treat. Gino D'Acampo and Peter Andre.
Goodness.
I mean,
I saw the weirdest combination on that a week ago. I think it was Katie Price and Ben Fogle I heard about. I mean, what is that?
Well, I think always best that Katie Price lip syncs. I don't think really we want to hear the voice do it. A whole new world.
What's brilliant about that is I think Loose Women were trying to pitch for an NTA award by saying if we get one, Katie Price will sing. I mean, I don't want to see that.
Well, thank God they didn't. And Katie Price didn't. Listen, I don't want to be rude, but I have to go and record a podcast.
Steve,
that's totally
fine.
Steve, last thing. Do you reckon you could get John Coleshaw to do an impression of you?
No, the line's gone completely. I can't hear a thing. Oh, that was lucky. Nearly heard that question about John Coleshaw doing an impression of me. Rory Bremner did one of me years ago. He started talking in this funny voice. And I looked at him and I said, "Who's that supposed to be?" And he said, "It's you."
Oh.
Don't be so ridiculous. Sound at all like me. Actually, it's always good in radio to have a distinctive voice so that people go, "I know who that is."
Who that is, yeah.
You have to show that the whole thing about radio and the trick to it is, as you know, is just be yourself. There's no point in trying to be a copycat of somebody else. You just be yourself. The more yourself you are, the more the public will warm to you. Whether you've got, 2 legs, 3 willies and 2 heads, it doesn't make any difference. People like you just for being as much of yourself as you can be without sort of telling people, "Listen, move into my sitting room today. Let's have a chat about the programme."
Oh, Steve, it's been a pleasure.
Steve, we could probably chat to you for the next 50 hours. Thank you very much for coming on for our Parkinson's broadcast.
Bless you. Good luck.
Cheers, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Have a good show.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.